Hey guys, it's Madison. Today's video is all about how you escape that horrible feeling of when you can't find anything to read. Maybe you can't find something that'll hold your interest for long, or maybe every story that you read is starting to feel like the same one. How do you stay motivated to read when you're starting to feel burnt out? Here's 12 tips to help you get out of a reading rut. The first thing I recommend doing is decreasing the length of the stories that you're reading. So if you're currently reading novels, I would read short stories and novellas. And if you're already reading short stories and novellas, then I would give flash fiction a try. The reason for this is that you're more likely to get discouraged reading whenever you lose interest in a story and you're less than halfway through. So if you're reading something that's short, then naturally you're going to be more likely to finish it. My second suggestion is to read in a genre that you don't normally read in. The reason why it can feel as if a lot of the stories that you're reading are the same one is because you're staying in the same genre. Sometimes a trend will take off in one genre and it will saturate the entire market so that it feels as if you can't escape a certain type of storyline or trope because it's literally everywhere. That's why I recommend switching genres so that you can find stories that feel more original and fresh. Number 3 is give yourself permission to skip the boring parts. A lot of us grew up with some bad reading habits thanks to something known as the Accelerated Readers Program. These tests didn't measure our understanding of the material. They also didn't measure the way the material affected us or our feelings on it. These tests only measured our ability to remember insignificant facts about the book. These tests allowed us to get prizes and to feel a sense of validation. As a result, a lot of us grew up with this mindset that we couldn't skip around in the book because then we might forget some of these details or not remember them, and we might get in trouble for not reading it. And some people are just completionists who feel as if they don't read every single word in the book, they didn't really read the book. But let me tell you something right now. Okay, you are not any more or any less of a reader if you don't read every single word in the book. You can still say that you read it. This isn't English 101, and there is no quiz at the end of this book. I used to be this way too until I realized that life is too short to read the boring parts. I started thinking about how many more books that I could read in my lifetime if I decided to skip the boring parts, and that always motivates me to give in to that urge. Tip number 4, try a new format. If you're a person that usually reads ebooks, try reading a physical book, and vice versa. Also, if you've never tried audiobooks, consider giving those a try. I personally find those most effective whenever I'm working out or doing some mundane household chore. Switching the format in which you experience stories can automatically help you get out of a reading rut because of the novelty of the new experience. Tip number 5, read screenplays or books with lots of dialogue and white space. So there's something known as white space that not only increases the pacing of a story, but helps hold our focus in a way that's better than books that are densely packed with words. That's why if you're in a reading rut, one of the things I recommend trying out is reading screenplays. Tip number 6, read comics. So similar to the last suggestion, comics tend to have a lot of dialogue, and they also tend to have a much faster pace than most novels. So as a result, if you're feeling as if you're in a reading rut, reading some comic books might be a way to help you get out. Tip number 7, join a book club or get a reading buddy. Reading can be a very isolating experience. It's just you and the author, and that can make you feel alone sometimes. So if you get a reading buddy or join a book club, that can make reading feel more like a social experience, and that can be really rewarding. Plus, you can get some really awesome book recommendations. Tip number 8, ditch your reading goals. It's possible that your reading goals are preventing you from enjoying the books that you're reading because all you're really doing is crossing something off a checklist. Let's be honest, if you weren't obsessed with beating last year's reading record or bragging online about how many books you read, would you be reading the same books or the same amount of books? Having criteria that you feel as if you have to meet can deter even the most motivated reader. Remember, it's not about how many books you get through, it's about how many books get through to you. Tip number 9, keep a reading log. On a practical note, this can help you from accidentally reading the same book twice, getting halfway through it and be like, hey, I remember this book and I didn't like it the first time. A reading log can help you feel as if you accomplished something even if you don't have reading goals. And as a bonus, it can help you keep track of reading trends so that if you get stuck in another reading rut, you can see what's worked for you in the past and what you might want to change. Tip number 10, read fanfiction. The great thing about fanfiction is that you already know the characters and you're already invested in the fictional world, which makes it so much easier to get into than an original story. I know some people are repelled by fanfiction because they don't consider it real fiction, or because they can't add it to their Goodreads page and therefore feel as if it can't count towards their reading goals. But I'm here to tell you that you are not less of a person for enjoying fanfiction. In fact, some fanfiction is actually written better than original fiction. And just because you can't add something to your Goodreads page doesn't make it any less of a good story. Tip number 11, start a booktube channel. This goes back to making reading a social experience, and it can help you feel productive and therefore more motivated to keep reading. However, this can also backfire if you add a lot of pressure on yourself to read a certain number of books. So be sure to keep your expectations realistic, even if that means only putting out videos once or twice a month. Tip number 12, take a break. The more pressure you put on yourself to do something, the less likely you're going to want to do it. So worst case scenario, taking a step back from reading for a while might be the best thing you can do. Use this time to accomplish some non-reading goals so that you still feel as if you're being productive and you don't feel as if you're a failure just because you're taking a step back from reading. Eventually, you might end up feeling more motivated to read than ever before. I hope at least one of these tips helps you get motivated to start reading again. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. That would help me out so much. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week.